Good morning and welcome back to Workforce Wednesday in the Kentucky Chamber Workforce Center's Bus to Business virtual program series. My name is Harper Smith and I'm the Senior Manager of the Kentucky Chamber Workforce Center and I help direct the Bus to Business program. I want to thank our sponsors, Kentucky SHRM and AT&T, for their investment in helping to bring classrooms to careers, and Ulimi for their support through this virtual event platform. All of our resources and videos are housed on our website, kychamber.com/bus2business. This session is being recorded as well as live streamed to Facebook and YouTube and will be available to rewatch and share afterwards. So whether you're one of the over 115 students we have tuning in live with us on April 28th, or you're watching at a later date, thanks so much for being here and we hope you learned something new. Today is the fifth of a 6-part series with Horse Country to spotlight critical positions within the equine industry. Today we will be hearing from the Kentucky Equine Adoption Center, and our Talent Pipeline Management Equine Project Manager, Lori Mays, will be watching the chat for any questions that you all have, and we'll direct those after at the end of the session with a Q&A. So I'm going to go ahead and kick it over to the Equine Adoption Center, and we'll get started. Thanks so much.
My name is Karen Gustin. I am the director here at the Kentucky Equine Adoption Center. Welcome to Bus to Business. We're really happy that you have signed up to talk with us more about what we do here at the center. What we're going to do is a short tour around our farm, and then there will be a question and answer session afterwards. And we can talk more in detail about the operation here, the logistics of how horses come in and go out, and also about what running a nonprofit is all about, and some of the skills that you would need to develop to work at a place like this, but also skills that you would need to develop just basically to work successfully in any career that you choose. As I said, my name is Karen, and I've been here since 2012 at the Kentucky Equine Humane Center, and we are a private nonprofit horse rescue, the largest all-breed rescue here in the state of Kentucky, and we take in any type of equine, from miniature horses to mules, donkeys, and horses. And we take them from situations of abuse and neglect or from owners who can no longer care for them. And our whole goal is to help these horses move on to a future home with an adopter, very similar to the Humane Society for small animals. And we work really hard to put the right horse with the right person. So we're going to take a tour of the farm, and we have 72 acres here and 50 horses at any given time. So our horses are any breed. I mentioned we are the largest all-breed facility here, but about 50% of what we have at any given time is thoroughbred. And that is on purpose because of where we're located here. As you all know, thoroughbreds and the racing industry are, a huge economic driver here in Central Kentucky, and so because of that, we have at least 50% of our horses here as thoroughbred. After that, it's anything: quarter horses, Appaloosas, standard breds, saddlebreds, mixes, the whole gamut of any kind of breed of horse. So we're going to walk over, and I'll just point out some of our pastures and also talk a little bit about the outreach that we do here globally. So we also see other things here besides horses, and this is kind of a neat little thing that's happening right now. This is a female killdeer who has decided to lay 4 eggs on this gravel path that we walk on every day. Equipment comes down this path, horses go up and down this path, and she has laid her nest right in the middle. Fortunately, it's between the wheel tracks. But because this nest is here, we're trying to be careful, obviously, leading horses in and out. But working on a farm is fun because you see other animals, obviously, besides the horses. We've had skunks and raccoons raise families here. So it'll be really cool to see what happens with those eggs. If she was not so upset, we'd go over and give you a close-up of the eggs, but because she is upset, I don't want to stress her out anymore. But there are 4 eggs. They're about this big, and they're creamy color with black spots, and they blend in perfectly with the gravel here. So it's just fun to see different things like that here. I'm going to point out one thing to you. If you look out this way, you will see a pole that looks kind of like a light post. And that is a webcam that you can access on a website called explore.org. Explore.org is the online web presence for a private family foundation called the Annenberg Foundation. And working in a nonprofit like this is challenging because we don't receive any government or state funding. All of our revenue comes from donations, special event fundraisers, direct mail, and grants. So the primary goal of managing a nonprofit like this is to be creative and diverse in the way we get our message out to the public. The whole purpose of getting that message out to the public is to engage people, and hopefully that engagement will result in some kind of support, either in kind or financial. And every day we are working to find creative ways to talk to people to get them to support what we're doing. All of our horses live outside in herds, and the main thing about horses to understand is most of them don't want to stay in barns excessively. Horses like to be outside, they like to be with their friends, they like to walk around, and they like to eat. And if you can provide an environment for a horse to do that, they're generally pretty happy. So we have very big fields. You can see these geldings here are in field 1, we have field 2, and if you look out this way, you will see this green-sided building that's called a run-in shed, and those are the shelters in every field for horses to get into if it's raining, snowing, super windy, or just really, really cold. Having said that, it's not uncommon to have it be pouring rain and everybody's standing right outside the run-in shed, so go figure. Horses are pretty hardy animals. If they're healthy, they generally do fine in all types of weather. So we're firm believers in having them live outside in natural herds. And the only time they're really in the barn is if they're sick, waiting for a farrier or a veterinarian, or recovering from some kind of injury or illness. So one thing about working on a farm, and just really any kind of job, and really no matter what you're doing, whether it's punching the cash register at Speedway, working in a library, working for a nonprofit, working for a big company like Walmart, is safety. And we take safety here very seriously. Horses are big animals. You know, the average weight is 1,000 to 1,200 pounds. They can be unpredictable. And so every farm that you see here in Kentucky should have some kind of warning sign, which releases us theoretically from liability should some kind of accident occur here. And everything we do here with employees and with the public has safety in mind so that we can provide a safe experience for everybody. And we pay a lot of attention to that because it's very important. Here on our farm, of course, we have liability insurance. Any commercial or nonprofit business should have insurance. So we have general liability insurance and workman's comp insurance for our employees. And then there's another type of insurance called directors and officers insurance, which is a type of insurance that covers our board of directors from liability issues. So just wanted to talk a little bit about safety. As I mentioned, the primary goal for all of our horses here at the center is to find an adoptive home. Behind me is Bishop. He is a Tennessee walking horse gelding in very nice shape and in his mid-teens. He is actually going to be looked at by a potential adopter today to see if it's the right fit. When people look at horses, they have to fill out an adoption application first. So we thoroughly vet them. We ask for farrier references, personal reference, and veterinarian reference. We ask for photos of the facility where the horse will be kept. And then we talk to them about what type of horse they're looking for, that kind of thing. And once that application is processed, then the person makes an appointment to come out here and check out any horse that they're interested in, because the application is good for a year and it's good for any horse. So Bishop is being groomed. This is Abby, one of our trainers. Generally what happens is our trainer will get on the horse first, and then the adopter has an opportunity to ride as well. And Lydia is around here somewhere, but if she pops up again, I'll introduce you to her. Lydia is one of our barn workers and also an apprentice trainer. So this is Bishop. We spend time grooming the horse. You know, we want to present the horse in their best light physically, and see if this will be the right fit for him and for the gentleman that's looking at him. In addition to our general horse care and adoption program, we have two other programs that we host here at the center. We are firm believers in education, and so every public tour, every outreach program that we do is really about education. And our two main education programs are called Take the Reins, which was originally started and geared towards 4th grade, but we've actually branched out and serve kids from 1st grade up through high school. And the purpose of Take the Reins is to educate kids about horses, how to take care of horses responsibly, which translates really into any animal, and how to give back to the community, which is basically what we do a lot of here. So Take the Reins has been going on for 4 or 5 years now. And this year we started a new program called the SASH program, which is Support a Special Horse. And through a very nice grant from the ASPCA, we have been able to run a pilot program. And the purpose of the SASH program is to work with people who are either very new to horse ownership or who want to eventually get into horse ownership but really don't know anything yet. And so we have an 8 and 16-week curriculum that goes through all different aspects of horse ownership, the biology of horses, horse behavior, budgeting, adoption, that kind of thing. And so this stall is set up for our SASH participants, and that program started a week ago and will run for the next 7 weeks, and then we will run another 16-week program later in the year. So as I mentioned, the ASPCA is one of those supporters, and Alltech is our corporate sponsor for Take the Reins. And without Alltech's support, really, our education program would not be where it is today, so we're very grateful to them for that. The other program that we host here is called Heads Up, Hearts Open. And Heads Up, Hearts Open was started a few years ago now, and that is an equine assisted learning program. And initially when it started, we offered our farm as a venue and a facility for other professionals to come in and do equine assisted learning with their clients. Those clients ranged from veterans who are suffering from PTSD to people who want to be trained as equine assisted learning trainers and facilitators. And we host all of those clinics and workshops here in our arena. Prior to last year, this arena did not look like this. We had a very, very small arena that fit about 2 or 3 horses at a time. And last year received a wonderful grant from the Joanne Gant Charitable Foundation to cover our arena and expand the inside of it. And now we can do all sorts of activities without worrying about rain and sleet and that kind of thing. So we're very grateful to that foundation, and it's really been a game changer for us because now we can have 8 or 9 horses in this arena and up to 10 or 15 people at any given time. So we're very strong proponents of education, and horses are awesome tools to use as ways to educate people about skills such as interpersonal communication, self-awareness, team building, stress relief, that kind of thing. And that's what the Equine Assisted Learning Program is all about. I mentioned too that when horses get surrendered to us, sometimes they're not in very good shape, or they suffer an injury or an illness. So a lot of what we do here is veterinary care. We have awesome veterinary partners with Rood and Riddle Equine Hospital, Haggard Equine Medical Institute, and Park Equine Hospital. There are veterinarians from all 3 practices on our board of directors, and it's very interesting to see what walks through the door here from a medical standpoint. This horse is Occasional Storm. She suffered some kind of ligament or tendon injury in her rear, which has translated to her back leg, and she's on stall rest for a couple of months. The nice thing about our facility here, though, is we can set up these temporary paddocks so that she doesn't have to stay in the barn all the time. As I mentioned before, horses do not want to spend excessive amounts of time in barns. So during the day, she can be in this small enclosure. She's near other horses who are in the adjacent pasture, and then she spends her nights in the barn. So, you know, she's slowly getting better, but injuries like hers are very difficult and take a long time to heal. So we do a lot of veterinary work here. At the staff level, and then partner with the veterinarians that come in and dispense medication and do, you know, complicated treatments. We're going to finish our tour of the farm at one of our smaller pastures. As you can see, we have small little ponies and miniature horses in this pasture. I mentioned that our horses live in herds. We try to put like horses together based on their breed, based on their physical condition, based on their age, and their personalities. So in this field, starting from the left, we have Aztec, who is that brown and white miniature horse. He came to us from a family in Kentucky who was not able to provide him with a dry lot. He had foundered, and we can talk more about that later, what founder actually is, and requires a pasture where we can really monitor the amount of food that he eats. So that's Aztec. Next to him is a little chestnut miniature horse named Bourbon, and Bourbon actually came in with the horse that we saw in the barn named Bishop, from an owner who wasn't able to take care of them anymore, but they were both in very good condition. And then this little white pony is Dancer. Dancer is a Welsh cross mare, cute as a button. She's going to be really nice for someone someday. Her challenge is that she doesn't have any sight in her right eye. She still has her eye, but she can't see out of it. So it's not uncommon for horses to not be able to see out of one eye or lose an eye. Generally, they are still able to function very well, and it's not too much of a hindrance. So she's, I'm sure, used to really only relying on one eye most of the time. And then to her left is Taco. Taco is another small pony that was adopted but came back because he just didn't fit in very well with the rest of the horses at the farm that he was at. And so far here, he's fitting in fine with these other little guys. So, you know, every living situation is different. You can never really predict how a horse is going to behave or acclimate. He came back, though, in excellent shape, and we probably shouldn't have any trouble, I don't think, getting him adopted. So this is the mini in the pony field. So that concludes our tour of the center, and I will be available for question and answers. I'd be happy to talk a little bit more just about the specifics of some of the operational things we do here, and also talk a little bit more about the management side of managing a nonprofit and some of the skills that you need to be successful, as I said previously, not just in a nonprofit, but really in any kind of career that you choose to work in. Thanks for watching.
That was a great tour of the facility, and I'll now kick it over to Lori and Karen for the Q&A. Thanks so much.
Thanks, Harper. And Karen, that was a fantastic tour. I've been out there several times, but it gets better and better every time I'm out there because you guys are always updating facilities and have great programs going on. So I appreciate you taking the time to talk about that. So we've had some questions in the chat, and then I have some that I'm just going to ask as well. So you talk a lot about it being a nonprofit organization at the Adoption Center. Can you talk a little bit about the difference? If someone were to go work for a nonprofit, how does that look different than working for what we would consider a for-profit or a more common business that you would see that is making revenue? Oh, you're muted, Karen.
Here we go. Okay, now can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, that's a really good question. I should explain, before I started working here, I've been here for 9 years. I had a 30-plus year career with the National Park Service. So I worked for the federal government for 30-some years, which is also not the same as a for-profit company, but it's got its own level of uniqueness. And working for a nonprofit is really different. A lot of it depends on the size of the nonprofit. So if you work for the American Red Cross or the United Way, it's going to look a lot different than working for our nonprofit. Generally, smaller nonprofits generally do not offer benefits. They generally pay hourly or, at the salary level. I will say working for a small nonprofit, which to me, a small nonprofit is anybody that has a budget under $1 million annually. So we are in that category. Our budget is a little over $500,000. And so it's a lot more flexible than working for a bigger company. We still have processes and policies in place, but there's a lot more flexibility as far as time goes and just the general operations go. We don't have a lot of layers of management that need to approve what we do, which is very nice because I came from the federal government where, it took 3 months to make a decision, which is similar. Oops, I shouldn't say that because you guys work for the state.
But it is true, though. When you work for government agencies, it is. So, it's different.
There's bureaucracy everywhere. At our level, since we are a small nonprofit, I make the decisions. If it enters into some kind of controversial area, I always consult with our board of directors. So nonprofits have board of directors that really govern the organization. And under the board of directors is staff. So I'm the executive director. I'm a staff person. And everybody that works here is considered staff. If I get into an area that needs discussion from a policy standpoint, then I go to the board of directors and I talk about it with them as well as the staff here. But there's a lot more flexibility in decision making and ability to implement things quickly when you work for a smaller nonprofit. When you work for a larger nonprofit, it just gets a little more complicated. Generally, the money is a little better for sure. It just depends on the actual nonprofit and what their mission is and who their support comes from. Some nonprofits have what are called endowments that fund or contribute a large majority of the funding to their operation, as well as all the things I mentioned in the video, which are fundraisers, direct mail, grants, and donations. So the key thing about working for a nonprofit or running a nonprofit is to make sure that your revenue base is very diverse. So you don't want to rely on just one thing to fund you, because if that one thing dries up or there's some kind of catastrophe, you're kind of sunk. So you want your money coming in from lots of different places. And in the video, I mentioned how we have to be creative in how we do that, because there is no given in the nonprofit world, especially if you don't have something like an endowment set up that provides, a steady amount of money on a yearly basis. So that's contrasted with, say, the government, state or feds, who receive congressionally appropriated funding every year. Generally, you can kind of count on that money coming in, but that's very different from the nonprofit world. So there's more flexibility. You can do things faster. Usually there are less layers of control from management if it's a smaller nonprofit, which makes things nice because you can do things quickly. Now, the challenge, though, is that the financial resources are often less at the smaller level than they are at a larger level. So funding is really important.
And that's definitely a complex thing, talking about nonprofits versus for-profit businesses. But thank you for summing that up. So to kind of go along with that, you talk about, there being less layers within your business. So you are the executive director, which kind of answers to the board, like you talked about. What are some positions that are under you that help to make your facility run on a day-to-day basis?
Okay. So when I got here back in 2012, we had 5 employees. And now we have 10 to 11, depending on, the time of the year. So directly under me is a barn manager who supervises all of the positions in the barn related to training and horse care. And then I have a development director, and that person is responsible for fundraising, community outreach, that kind of thing. When I got here, that position did not exist, the director of development. So those two positions are very important. And then there are a couple of part-time office assistants that also report directly to me. Underneath the development director is a marketing assistant, which is also a full-time position. And under the barn manager are 2 full-time trainers and a barn worker / apprentice trainer. And then we have a part-time maintenance person that works in the summer. So it's pretty small. And the challenge here is we have to have 7-day coverage because horses have to be taken care of 7 days a week, 365 days out of the year. They poop and eat every day. We had a volunteer quite a while ago now come in, and she was working for us. She was a very nice lady. I think she was in her 60s or 70s, and she must have weighed 50 pounds dripping wet. And it was really, really cold the day she showed up to work. And she was cleaning a stall. And after she finished, she's like, "Do you guys have to do this every day?" And I'm like, "Yep." And interestingly, she didn't come back after that experience. It was like 0 out. It was so cold. And I saw her later, though, at a fundraiser. And, no hard feelings. It just wasn't what she was cut out for.
And it is, it's hard work, and it's super fun when it's 75 and sunny out, but it's not always so fun on Christmas Day when it's sleeting. So, and that's true of a lot of positions within the horse industry, but you guys have a lot of really unique positions at your facility. So you touched on volunteers. What are the role of volunteers at your facility, and how do they help supplement your full-time staff?
Right. So if you go to our website, which is www.kyeac.org, there's a tab for volunteers. There's an orientation video on our website. People fill out an application, and then they come out for their orientation, their site orientation. The key to being a great volunteer here is to have enough time to come here on a regular basis. If people just come once or twice, I mean, they're going to help us. But if you want to be an active volunteer and you can come on a regular basis, then we start to depend on you, and you will be able to do a lot more with our staff the longer you're here. And a lot of volunteers have such different skill levels. Some people know nothing. Some people have been around horses all their lives. Our goal is to safely orient them so that they can safely do what we need them to do. And everybody that volunteers usually always wants access to the horses. So petting them, grooming them, leading them, feeding them, that kind of thing. And that can all be done. But if people don't know anything about horses before they come, then it takes time for us to be able to teach them how to do those things safely. So we have probably about 20 what I call steady Eddie volunteers, and those are the volunteers that come on a real regular basis, and they become part of our staff. They're so good, and they're so reliable, and they do fantastic work. So it's really a bonus to have people like that show up.
Well, and it definitely helps for them to know your organization, the horses that are coming in and out, and kind of your routine. Right. So are there any stipulations to volunteering, such as an age requirement or anything to come out?
You have to be at least 14 and above. And if you're under 16, your parent has to be here with you. If you're over 16, you don't have to have your parent here. And then we do ask volunteers to volunteer 8 hours a month. And those are really the only stipulations that we have.
Which is fantastic, because a lot of places won't allow people that young to come out, especially to work around horses. So that's great that you guys have that opportunity. Beyond volunteering, if someone just wanted to come out and see your facility and learn more about what you guys do, not necessarily particularly looking to adopt or to volunteer, is that possible?
Oh, yeah. So we have a great partnership with Horse Country. I don't know, do these participants know much about Horse Country? Do you think?
Yeah, we've talked some about it, so you can touch on it a little bit though. That'd be great.
Yeah. So Horse Country is a great organization. Prior to their formation, the only way you could really get access to any of these big farms around here was to call up and, you know, make an appointment to try to go out and get some kind of tour. Horse Country formed several years ago now, and they have a website. They have members, commercial for-profit farms, and then there are 3 nonprofits. We're one of them. And Horse Country provides a central location for people to go to make reservations to go on tours of these facilities. And the tours are all different. They're all at different times. It's a great selection of places to go and very diverse as far as days and times goes. So we offer regular tours on Fridays and Saturdays at 1:30 and then on every other Saturday at 3 o'clock as well. And that is a good way for people to come out here and learn about what we do. There is a charge for those tours that goes through Horse Country. It's $20 a person. And those people get pretty direct access to our horses. We actually have Aztec, that little miniature horse, the little brown and white miniature horse. He is a co-tour guide with us. So he goes on the tour with us. Sometimes people will call though, and you know, they're not going to be in town on a Friday or Saturday, and they say, can we come out and take a look around? If there's somebody here, we will walk them around and give them a tour, but they don't get the same experience as Horse Country tour people do. And so we're happy to do that because it's, as I said, all about education. And, you really never know who's going to walk through the door when it comes to people and what kind of support you might get from that person, or, what kind of contact they might have. It's all about, like I said, getting your message across and sparking some level of interest in someone so they support you, basically.
That's awesome. And you talked a lot about the different positions that you guys have there and how you are kind of structured, as well as the role of the volunteers. But could you walk us through like a typical, and I say typical, which is funny when you say that in the horse industry, but what does a typical day look like for you? So what are the day-to-day tasks that you as an executive director of a nonprofit partake in every day?
Right. So it's pretty hands-on here. All initial horse inquiries usually come through me, depending on who answers the phone. A lot of people will call and they just want general information about horses. Anybody here can answer those questions. I mentioned, I think early in the video, our horses come from a wide variety of situations. So there are abuse, neglect situations, and then also come from individual owners who can no longer care for their horses. So I would say about 50% of my time is spent on the phone talking with people who need to surrender their horses. When horses are surrendered to us, they transfer ownership to us. So we become the new owners of that horse. We cannot take horses that are pending any kind of court case. Say animal control seizes some horses and they want to charge the people with animal neglect or cruelty. And there's a possibility that at the end of a trial or some kind of hearing, the horses could go back to the owner. We will not take those horses because we're not a boarding facility. Our goal is to take in horses that need help. If they need rehab, we do it. We put them in a training program and then they get adopted. So like I said, about 50% of my time is spent on the phone with these people who are in crisis in many, many cases. The neglect and the abuse situations are handled initially by law enforcement or animal control, and then they reach out to us. And when animal control asks us for help, we always say yes, because we want them to know that we're a resource. Most animal controls in Kentucky do not have barns and don't have pastures and don't have facilities to put horses. So if somebody from animal control calls and says, I have this person that's going to surrender this horse to us, will you take it? We say yes. Then we have owners who are going through bad times in their life. So somebody passed away, somebody got sick, somebody got injured, and finances are a big reason why people surrender their horses. And those people are actually trying to do the right thing by their horse to get them in some kind of facility like ours before it does become a bad neglect situation. And having said that, though, a lot of these horses show up when they need a lot of work. But at least people are reaching out ahead of time because they truly do want to do the right thing. And that takes a lot of time to ferret out that information. A lot of these people, like I said, are in crisis. They aren't thinking as clearly as they normally would. Their life is upended, and there are usually several phone calls that go into trying to understand what the situation is with a particular horse. And it's very sad sometimes to talk to these people. And any one of us could find ourselves in that situation. So when people call us, we have a black book. And the black book is where we record all the details about the horse. And I don't know if you can see that. So we have name, sex, all that stuff. And then the key thing is understanding what the situation is behind why this horse needs a new home. And like I said, sometimes people can't explain it very well, and it takes them a while. Once they get recorded in the black book, if it's a horse that we're going to take, they get into the green notebook, which is our waiting list. So we have 50 horses here on 72 acres. Our waiting list is about 8 to 9 horses long at any given time. And as soon as a horse gets adopted, a new horse comes in. So my job is to start facilitating all of that process. And then everybody else gets involved. So the barn people get involved. The barn manager and I meet once to twice a week, and we go over the whole horse list. All the people that are waiting, people that are coming to look at horses, to adopt them, so that we can keep traffic flowing. I mean, that's really what it's all about. So I'd say 50% of my time is spent doing that. And then a significant percentage of time is spent doing outreach, like what we're doing, talking to people, talking to potential donors, engaging people, whether it's one person at a time or a large group like this. And then there are mundane administrative tasks that I have to do. But the best one is putting money in the bank. And I love doing deposits. So in a large organization, I would probably have some kind of business manager who could do some of this stuff administratively, but I do it. And then my other 2 part-time office assistants do a lot of really important administrative stuff, everything from processing adoption applications to managing our donor database, which is a very important task. So it's a combination of administrative, outreach and education, and then a large percentage of talking with people or organizations that need options for their horses. And truthfully, that is the most interesting part of my job. I love putting deals together, especially when I know it's going to benefit a horse. And at the end of the day, our job is to help these animals, and we work really hard to do that. And it's really nice to be able to say yes to people, knowing that this horse really needs a place to land, and that we are able, to offer that to them.
Yeah. And that's fantastic. How many horses would you say on average you kind of adopt out yearly? What's kind of you talk about that flow and needing to adopt horses out to be able to provide services for new horses coming in. So what does that look like, and how do you manage that?
So last year we adopted out or transferred 120 horses, which for one facility is pretty good. And then at any given time we have 50 horses here. So we're, on a yearly basis, we're handling hundreds of horses, either on site or going out to an adoptive home. So that last year was our biggest year, primarily because we formed 2 really great partnerships with some out-of-state animal rescue facilities, one in Michigan and one in Ohio, who, believe it or not, actually don't have enough horses to adopt out to people that want them, which I never even knew existed. And they come down and they look at horses, and if they find some that they think will suit their client base, then we will transfer those horses to them. And it's interesting because I'd say 70% of those horses are horses that have been sitting here for a while. And a while is like anything over 8 months or so. They take these horses home and they get adopted like within a month. So those partnerships have really helped, and it's really helped us shorten our waiting list, because our waiting list used to be really long, and it's not like that anymore, which is really nice. So, about 120 horses a year.
That's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
So having those kind of partnerships is fantastic. So now just a couple of questions that came through the chat, and you've touched on this a little bit, the types of breeds that come in.
Yes.
And you'd said that, a good portion of them are thoroughbreds, but that you also get some others. So what's a unique breed that you've gotten in that maybe you don't see all the time, or, some different ones that people may not be familiar with?
A Georgian Grand. Do you know what that is?
Yeah.
I never had
I do, but you should explain, because they're neat.
So it's a cross between a Frisian and a saddlebred. So this horse, she's kind of like, she was a plain bay. She had no markings on her. But that was a breed I had never heard of, a Georgian Grand. A lot of people are interested in draft horses. We do not get very many draft horses surrendered to us. I can count on two hands the number of draft horses we've gotten in the 9 years I've been here. But we did get a beautiful Percheron Frisian cross very long time ago. And she was spectacular. She came in excellent condition. She was young. She was like 5 years old. The people that came to the center, they came to check us out before they actually surrendered her, which does not happen very often. But when it does, you can tell it's going to be a pretty special horse. The story behind why she got surrendered was very sad. The couple had moved here from out of state. The wife had cancer, and they didn't have any health insurance, and they couldn't afford to keep this horse. And when they dropped the horse off, I said, this is the first time I've actually felt bad taking a horse from an owner, because it was very, very sad that they had to do that. And of course, that horse immediately got adopted, and to a really great person. So we don't get very many drafts, but she was spectacular. And as far as unique breeds, we get a lot of gaited horses from Eastern Kentucky. The gaited horse part is not very unique, but the situation out in Eastern Kentucky is pretty unique with the free roaming horses on the strip mine jobs. So that is an interesting situation that is unique to Kentucky. And we've taken in at least 100 horses from that area, either that are free roaming or from individual owners.
Yeah, and so side note to our audience, so I actually adopted a pony from what was the Equine Humane Center back in 2009, which is now their organization, who was a strip mine pony. And she was an amazing, amazing pony that I owned for many, many years, and ended up going on to compete her and do a lot of really neat things. And she's now owned by a wonderful family in Georgia. So they get some really unique and cool horses that go through there. She was an Appaloosa cross pony. And then someone asked as well, do you guys ever have foals at the center, get surrendered foals, have mares come in that foal with you guys? And what's the process with that?
Yeah, so we will accept any type of equine. Our niche here is that we're an all-breed facility, which means we'll take any breed of horse. About 50% of what we have at any given time is thoroughbred. We will take in mares that are in foal. We will take in stallions, but the stallions do get gelded as soon as is practical. So we don't adopt out stallions. And when people sign their adoption contract with us, they have to agree not to race the horse or breed the horse. So those are kind of the caveats. And it's interesting about mares in foal, because some years will go by and we won't get anybody that's pregnant. But last year we had 3 mares that came in that were in foal. They all had their babies here. And we still have one of those babies, but the other 2 got adopted pretty quickly. Generally, when we have babies, they're usually with us for a couple of years until they get ready until they're at least solidly halter broke. And it's unusual that we adopted out these 2 weanlings, but we don't adopt them out until they're weaned. And we do that at 6 months. And that is a little later than some people do, but it's not very traumatic because mom is ready to be done, and generally the baby is ready to be done being dependent on mom. So it's, there's a little bit of angst for about a day, and then it's pretty chill. So we wait. Some people will wean like at 4 or 5 months, which we don't. We wait until 6 months. So anyway, we take them in, and they full out here. Knock on wood, we've never had a problem birth, except we did have one stillborn full last summer. And truthfully, unless she'd been in a barn and had round-the-clock care, we probably would not have been able to save that baby. But all the other babies we've had have been born out in the field, and they all do really well. We come to work and they're here. It's kind of like Christmas.
That's a fun surprise in the morning.
Yeah, and it's always when we're not here.
So just one question to wrap up a little bit. You had talked about founder and the need for some of your ponies and miniature horses to be on what we call a dry lot. Can you explain that just a little bit in the spirit of education, what that means and why that's important for horse owners that have those type of...
Let me see if I can find my little visual aid here. Stand by.
So the really interesting thing about the Equine Adoption Center, and Karen touched on this before, is that they do see so many types of horses with so many ailments and interesting backgrounds that if you do volunteer or become involved with them, you see a lot of kind of neat stuff that happens.
Yeah.
Stuff that you wouldn't necessarily normally see at a boarding facility or something like that, where you have horses that are, usually more properly cared for and things like that. So every time I go out, Karen always shows me a neat thing that they have at the farm, what we consider as horse people neat, that they're dealing with. So touch on founder a little bit, Karen, and what that is in horses.
Okay, so we use this in our Take the Reins education program. This is an actual hoof from a horse that's been preserved. Sometimes it grosses people out a little bit. The main thing about horses, I'll talk about euthanasia real quickly. We do euthanize here. If the horse suffers an injury that is going to make its quality of life terrible, or it has an illness that just isn't going to get any better, and it's all about the horse's quality of life. Sometimes we are able to partner with a veterinary clinic that needs to use a horse for educational purposes for their interns or their other vets. And while it's extremely sad to euthanize, I always feel a tad better when I know the horse is going to be used for educational purposes for aspiring veterinarians or vet techs or somebody in the medical field. So this was not our horse. We bought this. But this is a hoof, and inside the hoof is the anatomy of the inside of a horse's leg. And these are bones. And when you look at the outside of a hoof, this is called the hoof wall. And inside the hoof is a bone down here that looks kind of like a triangle. And let me see. Okay, this is how it would look on a horse. So you've got this triangular bone here, and that is called the coffin bone. And in between the coffin bone and, oops, everything's backwards because I'm on the screen. In between the coffin bone and the hoof wall is a connective layer of tissue called the lamina. And if you ever look at the inside of a horse's hoof, like a 3D photo or something, that lamina is full of tons and tons and tons of blood vessels. And that's what supplies blood to the hoof. That lamina connects the hoof wall to the coffin bone, and actually is what makes the hoof, able to support weight. When horses either suffer a traumatic injury or they get too fat, which is bad for a horse, that lamina in between the hoof wall and the coffin bone gets really irritated because there's too, in the case of an obese horse, there's just too much weight on the foot. And if you don't treat that lamina quickly, this lamina, the connective tissue between the hoof wall and this bone, will start to disintegrate, and it'll start to lose its ability to connect those pieces of the foot together. And when that happens, you're left with a coffin bone that doesn't have much support. And the coffin bone, the angle of the bone will actually start to change, and it'll start to go down. So when you look at this foot and the leg, see how nice of a line you have on the hoof, or in the leg down to the hoof. You know, it should be straight. When a horse is suffering after this lamina disintegrates, you don't have this nice straight line. Inside the hoof, it looks like this, and then it kind of goes cattywampus down in the hoof, and you've got this line up to here, and then it goes like that. That's called founder. So laminitis is when the lamina is extremely irritated and angry because there's too much weight or the horse has suffered an injury. Founder is when the lamina has lost its ability to connect the hoof wall with the coffin bone, and the coffin bone essentially starts to separate. And like I tell people, it's a lot more fun to feed a skinny horse than it is to restrict a fat horse's diet. And when you drive around this area and you see horses with these screens on their face, those are called muzzles, and they're there so the horse won't eat as much grass as it wants to, because it has, you know, a tendency to gain weight. And when we were at the pony field in the video, those little ponies can gain weight really fast, especially miniature horses. And Aztec has foundered, but they caught it in time, and you'll never, once a coffin bone starts to change and the angle starts to change, it won't go back, but you can arrest its development. And horses can be what's called pasture sound. They can't be ridden, but they can certainly get around fine, and, you know, life is okay. So founder basically is when the coffin bone starts to separate from that lamina and the angle of the bone changes, and the support that the horse has in their foot has been affected. And those hoof problems are very common in horses. You know, there's this saying, no horse, no foot, no horse. It's really true. You know, you look at this 1,200-pound animal, it's on 4 sticks that are supporting all that weight. So it's, you know, there's not a lot of surface area to support that much weight. And so hoof care is extremely important. It's all related to diet, and it's related to farrier care that horses get every 6 weeks to keep those hooves trimmed or shod if they're wearing shoes. And we see a lot of laminitis and founder here. And, you know, founder can get so bad that the horse just has way too much pain and has to eventually be euthanized, which is really sad because it's a very preventable condition.
Which is where all of your great education comes in, that it's important to know, you know, proper horse care when you have them. So that's what I think is really interesting about your organization, is that not only do you care for horses that are in less than optimal conditions, but you want to educate the population so that hopefully you get less horses in. Because although we love your organization, your goal is to not have any horses come to you because they're all being taken care of so well, you know. So we appreciate all of your information. One last question. Can you let us know where your center is located? In case anybody wants to contact you and come out for a visit or look at potential horses, where you guys are?
Yeah. We are in Nicholasville at 1713 Catnip Hill Road. We're basically just on the very south side of Lexington. We're not really in, you know, you don't actually go into Nicholasville. We're just south of the shopping center on Nicholasville Road, where there's a Kohl's and a Starbucks. And we are midway between Nicholasville Road and Harrodsburg Road. So if you're interested in volunteering, I mentioned you can go to our website, go to the volunteer tab. If you're interested in taking a tour, horse country is really the best way to do that. If you're interested in just getting more information, you know, feel free to make an appointment and come out and talk to me or anybody else that's here on the staff. We also, for all of you horse people in the audience, we do have a big tax sale coming up in May. It's on May 15th, and we have 2 major tax sales a year. We have hundreds of used blankets that are in decent shape, lots of used tack, lots of used grooming supplies, and we have a garage full of stuff. So keep your ears posted for those types of events, which are always on our Facebook page.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much, Karen. We really appreciate you walking us around and educating us on your facility and what you guys do.
Yeah, well, thank you for inviting us.
Yeah, thank you, Karen, and thank you, Lori. That was a really informative session, and we really appreciate it. So thank you so much. I'll kind of just do a little housekeeping. So feel free to share this video on Facebook and YouTube with anybody who may have missed it. Our next live session, we have a special event with UPS coming up on Tuesday, May 4th at 2:30 p.m. Eastern. And then our next Workforce Wednesday live session, which will be at 10 a.m. next Wednesday, May 5th, will be with Radiant Corporation. So thank you all so much for participating today, and we hope you can join us next week. Thanks so much and have a great day.